my name is Melody and welcome back to Strawberry Lemon. Happy New Year everyone! It is 2023 now. I hope 2023 brings great things to everyone. But with the new year, I thought it would be fun to share with y'all 23 of my anticipated releases for 2023. New filming location today. You might hear my squeaky chair, but I am super excited to share some of these books with you. So the first book I have for y'all is Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amélie Wen Zhao. It is coming out on January 3rd, so by the time this video is released, it should be out already. And this book is inspired by Chinese mythology and folklore, and it follows a girl named Lan, and she is just trying to make a living after her kingdom is conquered. And at the same time, she is also trying to figure out what this burn mark that her mother left on her arm right before she dies means. It's a character that she can't translate and only she can see it for some reason. But yeah, one day a guy comes and saves her. He's actually a magician and he recognizes the burn mark on her arm, and it tells him that she has a very powerful magic hidden under that burn mark. And together they go to the last kingdom where a bunch of the magical practitioner masters are, and they're also in the works of trying to overthrow the people who have conquered them. But yeah, they go over there to try to figure out the mystery of her burn mark, and I'm assuming they uncover a bunch of other secrets as well. And yeah, the cover of this book is really nice. That's what really captured my attention at first. There's a dragon on the cover, and I'm not sure if that has any link to the magical abilities she has, but I'm kind of hoping that it does because dragons are really cool. Anyways, the next book that I have for y'all is City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. It is coming out on January 10th, and it is a fantasy horror kind of book. So it is about a girl named Ness who is 19 years old, and she lives in a city where if you go to sleep and you dream, you will wake up and become your worst nightmare. And this happened to Ness's sister, who woke up one day and became a man-eating spider and just ravaged through town, killing a bunch of people, I believe. So it's like a really interesting concept with this whole not being able to sleep thing and monsters, because people become monsters when they go to bed, and it just sounds really cool. But Ness also joins this kind of cult-like organization in order to help her stay alive because she doesn't want to get killed by the nightmares that are out there. And she's sent on a initiation kind of mission, and when she gets there, it ends up being an explosive assassination, and only Ness and one other boy survives, and that boy is a nightmare. So I believe he did sleep and he became his worst nightmare. So Ness thinks this guy is trying to eat her, but they had to work together to get back to the city and just to uncover the mysteries of the assassination and everything as well. And I just love the concept of this book. It sounds so good, so that is why it's on this list. But for the next book I have for y'all, it is called Court of Tricksters by S.L. Prater. It comes out on January 20th. I have a bunch of fantasy right now, but I promise there's more books other than just fantasy on this list. But yes, Court of Tricksters is also a fantasy, and it is following the Fae realm, I believe. So it follows the Duke of Night, and in order to not get into an arranged marriage kind of thing, he goes out looking for his mate. So the concept of a soulmate is present in this book, I believe, and he does end up finding her. She is a shy forest witch named Rain, and gives her a business proposal kind of that he thought that she could not refuse. So the business proposal is for a marriage of convenience, and a lot of people would jump for this because the Duke of Night is really high up in power in their realm, and who doesn't want to be rich and powerful and yada. But Rain was like, no, I want true love. I don't care for like all the scheming and the politics and everything. And yeah, the Duke of Night, instead of accepting the rejection, and because there's like war looming or whatever, there's a bunch of stuff going on, but yeah, instead of accepting the rejection, he decides it would be a good idea to kidnap her. And I think the story goes on from there, and I'm just interested to see where the story will go. And I'm assuming that the Duke of Night will win her over, but I don't know about that. But yeah, next on my list, jumping into February, we have When You Wish Upon a Lantern by Gloria Chao. This is coming out on February 14th. And I actually have an arc of this on NetGalley, so I'll probably have a video regarding this book before the book actually comes out or around the time the book comes out. And I'm super excited for this book. It just sounds really, really cute. So When You Wish Upon a Lantern is about two kids named Leah and Kai. They were best friends when they were kids, but an incident leads to a major humiliation, which ends up causing the biggest misunderstanding of all time. So they end up never talking after that incident. And the story follows Leah, whose family has a wishing lantern store that is struggling. So in order to hopefully boost business and everything, Leah wants to continue her grandmother's tradition of going out and secretly fulfilling the wishes that are written on the lanterns. But in order to do that, she's gonna need help, and Kai is the only one who cares enough to help her. So it follows them while they go on these secret missions to help fulfill other people's wishes, and I'm assuming they regain their friendship. Maybe there's some romance. And yeah, the cover of this book is super cute, and also it just sounds like it'll be a really heartwarming book. I'm really interested to see what kind of wishes they end up being able to fulfill. And yeah, next book we have is Izzy at the End of the World by K.A. Reynolds, and this is coming out on February 21st. And a lot of these books have cute covers, so I'm gonna try to not keep saying everybody has cute or beautiful covers, but this is also another book that drew me in because of the cover. I believe it is a middle grade, and this book is about Izzy, who is autistic, and she just lost her mother, and it feels like the end of the world. And to add on top of that, one night these lights flash in the mountains that she can see from the window of her house, and everybody besides her and her dog Akka disappear. So I believe she goes on this adventure with her dog Akka, and they are trying to figure out what is happening, how to save the world, and she has to fight these monsters. And she's also getting these cryptic messages which sound like it's her mother talking to her from the grave. And I believe she makes some allies along the way, makes some friends, and they try to save the world. And it just sounds like another cute book, and the cover really got to me. So I'm excited for this to come out. And the next book I have is a romance, and it is called The Neighbor Favor by Kristina Forrest, and it is coming out on February 28th. And this book follows Lily Green, who is shy and bookish and kind of awkward. And she is an editor, and right now she's in the nonfiction books division, but she really wants to get into children's books, but there is no promotion in sight for her, and she is really down about that. And something that kind of lifts her spirits is that she has been emailing back and forth with one of her favorite fantasy authors, and a friendship kind of sparks between them until one day this dude just ghosts her. And she gets really down about this, but there is also a wedding coming up for her sister, and she's determined to find a date to take to this wedding. And then in comes Nick Brown, and Nick Brown is her new neighbor, and he also turns out to be the fantasy author that ghosted her. But she doesn't know this because he uses a pen name to publish all of his books and everything. And Nick ends up realizing that Lily is the girl that he has been emailing with, who he has been falling in love with through the emails, and he doesn't want to complicate things between them, so he decides to agree to help her find a date to her sister's wedding, which that's not gonna end well. I sense some jealousy and things going on. Lily feels attracted to Nick, and yeah, we'll see where that goes. The man just shouldn't have ghosted her in the first place, but yeah. The next book I have is The Invisible Man and His Soon-to-Be Wife by Iwatobineko. Pretty sure I butchered that, but this is coming out on February 28th, and this is a manga. It's already been published in Japanese, but February 28th is the publication for the English version of this book. And this follows Yako Shizuka, who works at a detective agency, and her boss is Tonome, and he has the power of invisibility, which comes really handy in doing detective work. But this never works on Yako because she is blind and she can always sense when he's nearby. And he ends up getting really charmed by Yako and is determined to get this girl to date him. So he kind of makes advances and stuff. It seems like it's gonna be a really cute book if the cover says anything. And the last line on the synopsis says, Yako's quirky co-workers kindly watch over her as she stumbles and blushes through the uncharted waters of office romance. And it just sounds so cute. And I think my heart will go to mush after this, but I don't really care. I just want it in my hands. I really need a physical copy of this. I'm really starting to get into collecting manga. But anyways, the next book I have for y'all is The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill, and this is coming out on March 7th. There's actually a couple books coming out on March 7th, but this is a middle grade graphic novel. And again, this mostly caught my attention because of the cover, but I did really like the beginning part of this blurb. Being a moth keeper is a huge responsibility and a great honor, but what happens when the new moth keeper decides to take a break from the moon and see the sun for the first time? A middle grade fantasy graphic novel about passion, duty, and found family. And for graphic novels, I feel like one of the important things for me is the artwork style, and if the cover is any indication of how the art is gonna be, I think I will end up really liking the book. And the next book I have on my list is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This is also coming out on March 7th. And this is about Mariel Spark, who is prophesized to be one of the most powerful witches. But honestly, she doesn't really care for that, and her mother is really frustrated that she likes baking instead of brewing potions, and she likes gardening instead of casting hexes and stuff. And one day, a spell to summon flower goes wrong, and Mariel accidentally summons a demon who is here for a soul bargain. And that is Ozroth the Ruthless, who is a legend among demons, but his reputation kind of took a bit of a damage after a bargain that kind of went bad. So he's trying to prove himself by taking Mariel's soul, but Mariel refuses to make a deal with him. And so they end up becoming kind of roommates, I think, because Ozroth can't leave until a deal is made. And Mariel is afraid of telling her mother that she did a summoning wrong, so she ends up lying and telling her mother that she's actually dating Ozroth. Will Ozroth be willing to take her soul by the end of this? Or will they fall in love? And my guess is that they're gonna fall in love and hopefully a happy ending. But I guess we'll see. The next book I have is a middle grade, and it is What Stays Buried by Suzanne Young, and is also coming out on March 7th. And this is about a 12-year-old named Callista Wynn who is able to kind of speak and see the dead, but everybody in her family has lost this ability when they turn 13, and her birthday is coming up soon. But with a few weeks left, children have started to go missing, and Callista meets an angry spirit with a grudge against Callista and her family, and the spirit's called the Tall Lady, and she's pretty sure that the Tall Lady is responsible for all of the missing children. So before she loses her ability on her 13th birthday, she is going to try to figure out how to stop the Tall Lady before she loses anything else. And yeah, I usually don't read middle grades, but a couple middle grades did sneak onto this list, and I'm super excited to get to them. And the next book I have is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter, and this is coming out on March 14th. And this is about Halle Piper, who is turning over a new leaf. She gets a new apartment, a new haircut, a new wardrobe. She's just trying to change until she meets her one-night stand that she snuck out of the room of during the middle of the night, and that is Jack. They both agree that they have absolutely no interest in each other, so they end up deciding instead to be partners in crime in searching for their one. And they text each other a lot, often setting up dates in the same restaurant. And if the date ends up not going well, they just go and get tacos together, and a lot of tacos were gotten. They're kind of discouraged about not being able to find the one, but they do end up deciding to be each other's fake dates for a wedding. And I think we all know that things are gonna go down at the wedding and they're probably gonna fall in love, but somebody's probably gonna make a stupid mistake and it'll be fun to read about. The next book I have is To Poison a King by S.G. Prince. It is coming out on April 4th, and it is about Celine, who is the youngest daughter in a line of gifted healers, and they were born to serve as the king's royal physicians. But her mother Persephone ends up involving Celine in her plot to murder the king, and so things don't go well when the poison that they were going to use to kill the king doesn't kill the king, and he is angry, which he deserves to be because somebody just tried to murder him. But yeah, he is angry. Celine's mother ends up ditching her, fleeing away, and Celine is left to kind of heal back the man that she just tried to kill. And everybody in the court is trying to find out who poisoned the king. And I believe a romance, friendship kind of thing buds between Celine and the king. But the king also doesn't know that Celine was the one who poisoned him. And it's just a whole big mess. But a whole big, interesting sounding mess. And the next book I have is the only sequel I have on my list of anticipated reads, and it is The Blood Gift by N.E. Davenport. It is coming out on April 18th, and if you haven't read The Blood Trials, I highly recommend. I have a whole review about the book linked up there, and yeah, The Blood Trials is really, really good if you like an unhinged character, blood, death, gore, conspiracies, fighting, probably your kind of book. And I'm super excited to see the second book because the first book, there's still a lot of unresolved things, and I'm excited to see how this duology will end. And the next book I have for y'all is This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham, and it is coming out on April 25th. And it is about kind of in the future, I guess, with global warming, the melting of the Arctic permafrost causes the release of this pathogen. And this pathogen causes a small amount of the population to turn into what they are now called ghouls. So these ghouls crave for human flesh. Only human flesh can kind of sustain or is appealing for them at least. And if they go without eating humans, they end up becoming feral. So they turn on you and they just kill and eat you until they get killed, I guess. But the scientists were eventually able to make this human meat that does satisfy ghouls, and it is called sin flesh, this fake meat for ghouls. And yeah, this follows a couple people. It follows Zoe, Celeste, Valerie, and Jasmine as they all go to a musical festival in the desert before they graduate. And they have a cooler full of seltzers and sin flesh, and they're ready to party until Val mysteriously ends up going feral and kills and eats somebody. And as the festival keeps going on, other people ends up disappearing, and yeah, they find out that there is actually someone that is drugging ghouls, causing them to go feral, and they have to figure out this mystery, find out who's doing it, and stop them, or else nobody at the festival is safe. And this just sounds right up my alley. I have watched a lot of like zombie, vampire shows, supernatural kind of thing, like iZombie, All of Us Are Dead. Recently, I finished watching Santa Clarita Diet. And yeah, I don't know, this just seems really up my alley, and I'm super excited for this one. The next book I have for y'all is Lying in the Deep by Diana Urban, and this is coming out May 2nd. I believe Diana Urban also had a release last year too that was pretty popular as well. And this one I'm pretty sure is also a pretty popular anticipated release. But yeah, it follows Jade, who is ready for her semester at sea because her boyfriend and best friend just ditched her and got together instead. And yeah, she is ready to get away from that drama until she ends up going onto the ship and finding out that lo and behold, her ex-boyfriend and her ex-best friend are also doing this semester at sea. She gets a little obsessed with them, and apparently somebody ends up dying on this ship, and all fingers are pointing at Jade. So Jade has to work with this new crush that she has in order to figure out who is the real killer before more people keep dying and dying and dying because they're all trapped on a ship with nowhere else to go. And yeah, this gave me, besides like the whole killing aspect, gave me Sweet Life of Zach and Cody when they did the whole like Sweet Life on Deck thing, and it gives me nostalgia. I'm interested to finally reading a Diana Urban book. And the next book I have for y'all is Court of Undying Seasons by A.M. Strickland, and this is coming out on May 16th. And I think it is being marketed as a queer YA dark fantasy, and it has vampires, which I'm also really into watching things, reading things about vampires. So this is about a 19-year-old named Finn who takes her secret love's place in their village's finding. So people who are chosen in the finding, I believe, are taken away to Castle Courtshire, which is a vampire school where humans can either end up becoming vampires by the end of it or vampire food. So this follows Finn while she kind of wants to learn how to kill the vampires and get revenge because her mother was taken or killed, I think taken by vampires years ago. But she is kind of feeling things for her vampire maker. There is also a mystery aspect. She stumbles upon a string of murders that may be connected to a larger ritual, one with potentially lethal consequences for vampires and humans alike. So there's mystery, there's vampires, there's like the whole coming to terms that you might become that you are a vampire. I don't know if she ends up becoming a vampire. I'm assuming she is. And the next book I have for y'all is a romance, and it is called Kismat Connection by Ananya Devarajan, and it is coming out on June 13th. Sorry if I butchered that author's name, but it follows Medheri, whose mother is really into astrology, and apparently they have a family curse where the first boyfriend you ever have will be your like the one for you, kind of like you'll end up with them. And Medheri wants to change her fate. She doesn't believe in all of this, so she enlists her childhood best friend Arjun Meha to be her experimental boyfriend. But it sounds like from the synopsis that Arjun might already have a crush on Medheri, so who knows how that will go. But I don't know, falling for your first love seems kind of cute if your first love is the one. And the next book I have is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kalynn Bayron, which is coming out on June 20th. This book follows Charity, who has the summer job of her dreams playing the final girl at Camp Mirror Lake. And Camp Mirror Lake is a place where people pay money for a full contact terror game where Charity and all of her co-workers basically recreate scenes from a classic slasher film, Curse of Camp Mirror Lake. And the more realistic it is, the better it is. But on the last weekend of the season that they have this open, Charity's coworkers begin disappearing one by one, and Charity is actually feeling like the final girl. So she needs to figure out who this killer is if Charity and her girlfriend Bezzy want to survive the night. And there also seems to be like there's more to the past history of Mirror Lake. Maybe some of the slasher film movie scenes were taken from inspiration of something that happened. Who knows? But the next book I have is a historical romance, actually. I think it's the only historical romance on this list. And it is Bookshop Cinderella by Laura Lee Guhrke. Honestly, this book caught my eye because of the title, like Bookshop Cinderella just sounds really cute. So this book follows Evie, who owns a quaint little bookshop in London, which honestly sounds like so much fun. But she kind of has no prospects for marriage or anything until one day, Maximilian Shaw, Duke of Westbourne, saunters into her shop with a proposition. So he and his friends have this bet going on that if he can turn her into the diamond of the season, he wins the bet. So Evie at first was like not interested in this at all, but disaster strikes her shop and she has no other choice really. I'm assuming like due to financial means and everything like that. So Max happily whisks Evie away in order to turn her into the diamond of the ball and everything. But at the same time, Evie also kind of steals his heart a little. And when her reputation is threatened, can Max convince her to choose a glittering aristocratic life with him over the cozy comfort of her bookshop? I don't see why she can't have both. But I don't know, this seems really cute. I haven't really heard of this kind of concept in a historical romance, even though I don't read that much historical romance. But it sounds really interesting and I'm excited for this to come out. The next book I have for you is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and this is coming out on June 27th. And this follows Clementine, who from the vibe of the synopsis seems like she got her heart broken really bad, so she is afraid to give it away to anyone else, and she's been doing a really good job of that until one day she finds a strange man standing in the kitchen of her late aunt's apartment that she's living at. And this man has kind eyes and a southern drawl and a taste for lemon pies. And I believe he's definitely her type, but the problem is that he lives 7 years in the past and she's 7 years in his future. So there's a time warp element kind of thing going on. I'm very intrigued to see how like the magic of that kind of works. The next book I have is Forget Me Not by Julie Soto, which is coming out on July 11th. And this follows Ama, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but Ama is a wedding planner, but she doesn't want to be married herself due to her mother having been married multiple times and stuff like that. So Ama is just living her life and yeah, planning weddings. But in comes Elliot, who is a florist and is Ama's ex-boyfriend. From the synopsis, it seems like he proposed to her 2 years ago and she kind of just ran away and never talked to him again. So they are thrown together because there is a high celebrity wedding that wants to hire them both to plan the wedding. And the two brides of the wedding can't help but intervene when they see the kind of chemistry that Ama and Elliot have. And it just follows them and people meddling. And I feel like in a lot of romance books I've heard about, it's usually the girl that gets jilted. So it's really interesting to see that it is the guy who proposed and got jilted this time. And it just seems like a fun time. The next book I have, which is the second to last book, is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, which is coming out on July 25th. Chloe Gong also wrote These Violent Delights, which I still have not read yet, but I am planning on getting to that, probably before I get to this one. And this follows Princess Kayla, who 5 years ago her parents were massacred, and she was the one who did it. So running away from, I believe her uncle is now king, so running away from him, she's been hiding and determined to finish her mission of bringing down the monarchy. And she thinks that the perfect place to do this is by joining this competition that happens where people who are really good at body jumping fight in a game to the death, and the winner is always greeted by her uncle. And she thinks that if she wins, she'll be greeted by her uncle and that will be the perfect time to kill him. And in comes Anton, who is an exiled aristocrat who is in a lot of debt because his childhood love has been in a coma for years, and paying for the treatments and stuff that have been keeping her alive has caused a real dent in his money, I guess. So he is in debt, and the only way that he can get out of that debt Kayla is to hopefully win this game, and he is very, very skilled at body jumping, so that's good for him. So him and Kayla and King Kaza's adopted son end up all becoming allies. So I'm not actually sure if King Kaza and her uncle are the same people, but anyways, they become allies, and it says Kala and Anton's partnership spirals into something all-consuming. So I wonder if Kala and Anton end up like falling for each other, but then there's also the fact that his childhood love is in a coma, so I don't know what's gonna happen with that, but very intriguing and complicated. And the last book that I have for this list, the 23rd book, is The Infinity Particle by Wendy Xu, and this is a graphic novel. Wendy Xu has a couple graphic novels out, and she also helped co-create Mooncakes. I think that was pretty popular last year. I still haven't read it, but it looks so cute. And it is a speculative YA about a young woman whose best friend and first love suddenly reappears in her life after being presumed dead for 3 years. So this is a graphic novel, and it's tagged as being young adult and science fiction. So I saw some of the Goodreads reviews or like comments or whatever, wondering if like the boyfriend is an AI or something like that, which seems like a possibility based on the cover. But I don't know, it seems, honestly, this book is on the list just because the cover is really interesting, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna really like Wendy Xu's artistic style and everything. So I'm pretty excited for this. And there's oddly nothing on my list from September to December, so maybe by the end of the year I might have another video for end of the year releases. But those are 23 of my anticipated releases for 2023. Hopefully some of these intrigued you if you haven't heard about them before. There's probably a lot of new releases that I haven't heard about, so if you have any releases that you're anticipating, please let me know down below, or please let me know if any of these caught your eye or anything. And I think that's all I have for this video. I will hopefully see y'all in the next one, and yeah, bye! Don't be running away from it.